Everyone, this is what your pastor and tell you today that we are talking about part 2 of Mount Ebal journal article. So, I'm sure most of you watched my previous video where I summarized what scholars have said about the Mount Ebal tablet so far. We also talked about why it's so important. In this video, I want to give a short update on what more has been said since I posted my original video. I also wanted to talk about some analyzation of the actual epigraphy, which shows how this article is way worse than we actually thought. The drama surrounding this tablet has been crazier than I could ever dream of. There's been what could be illegal things done to obtain the tablet. The article has been shown to misrepresent people's positions and many other shenanigans. To begin with, Dr. Vanderveen, one of the two head epigraphers on the article, has publicly came out denouncing many of the claims made by the article. So much so that he has even said he really should have left the team working on the article. In addition, regarding the existence of letters at all, he says he can't say this for sure about the inner inscription, though, as we only have the scans. It says a lot that one of the main epigraphers of the tablet thinks it's possible that there isn't letters at all on the inside of the tablet. What he's saying is that he thinks there are probably some letters on the inside, but not as many as Galil, but he's basing that primarily on his confidence on what he thinks are letters on the outside of the tablet, and then comparing with what he sees on the inside. While the logic makes sense, it's entirely based on the validity of letters being on the outside, to which we won't be getting any legit peer review for at least a year, according to Vanderveen. Vanderveen seems to be 100 times more reasonable than Galil and Stripling have been so far. Should this give us confidence in the outside of the tablet having letters? It's hard to tell. To repeat, Vanderveen doesn't even stand by the findings of the epigraphy in the article, and since Vanderveen has pretty much said the epigraphy was all done by Gershon Galil, from now on, when I refer to the work of epigraphy, I'm just going to call it Galil's work. Many have heard the phrase that the pictures of the letters have no context. Someone who goes by the name Perborius on Twitter has personally gone through and analyzed each supposed letter that Galil claims is on there, and this person named Perborius has come up with some honestly striking findings. Perborius is a layman, but clearly has some knowledge on the topic of epigraphy. This is evidenced by the actual work, as well as being promoted by archaeologist Robert Cargill and epigrapher Gad Barnea. As we will see, Perborius shows that Galil's work on the tablet has major issues. The article often shows pictures of letters supposedly being one place of the tablet, but actually being put in other places. Places where the descriptions of the article don't match with the actual picture. Even one place where there is supposedly 3 different letters right on top of each other, being used for 3 different words. Let's dig into some actual epigraphy. First, we have to talk about the condition of the tablet, because the tablet could not actually be opened. They had to use special technology to essentially take pictures of the inside of the tablet without being able to actually look at the tablet with their eyes. They put most of their pictures, also called a slice, into a GIF that you can get on the article site. As can be seen, each second of this GIF is one slice of the tablet. The top left has the level of where the slice is on the tablet, and the top right shows where on the tablet it's looking at. Here's the GIF included in the tablet article. As you can see, it is a whole bunch of different slices put together. Basically, a picture of each individual portion of the tablet. So the top right here, we have where it is on the tablet that we're actually looking as we look at the photo. And then on the left top here, we have the level of where it is in the tablet. And you can, so as you can see, as the focus changes, you can see that little figures begin to appear. So you have this little stickman looking thing here. You have different little grooves and whatever. And of course, Galil thinks that those are letters. So let's look into them a little bit here. So what Perborius did was he took the drawing by Galil from the article and he compared that with the actual uh, basically he took a bunch of the pictures from, as you can see, -30 to 0.60, and he basically put them all together in a photo editor. And what that allows us to do is basically give us a good general idea of, like, I guess, what the inside of the tablet looks like. And it's roughly similar. So you got little two people here. You got kind of looks like a little smoky thingy here. You got some little zigzag looking thing there. It's not absolutely ridiculous. You could see the general idea. So, okay, so on the left side, so as I said, the left side we see the stacks of you can tell that there's, multiple there. And on the right side, of course, we have the proposed drawing. So, one stands out is the stick person here, okay? So this little stick guy is very important to the article because this little stick guy is supposedly the letter hey, and that's really important because the hey makes the h sound, which is Yahoo, the h in Yahoo, and that's supposed to be the early version of Yahweh that we have in the Bible. Now, of course, that's not completely certain, and there were other instances around the same time period where Yahoo was not used of the God Yahweh, but there's also debate on that. So, if you don't have this H sound, you don't have the divine name there. So that's why this is really important. Okay, so let's look into this a little bit closer here. Okay, so of course this is an ancient tablet, okay? It's old, these things often have cracks. So it's hard to tell if this is just like some actual markings by a person or just cracks in lead. So what you'll notice here is that this looks like a little pit. There's a head there. It looks like, okay, and then you have what this looks like, a little pipe looking thingy, okay. And what Galil wants to say is the little stick person and this little pipe thing are two different letters, okay. It's interesting though because this hey actually connects with this pipe. It seems a little odd for writing to do that. That typically doesn't happen. Okay? If this is an actual letter, it looks like the writer must have went too far and I guess made the letters connect. The odd thing is that in Galil's drawing, as you can tell, this stick figure and pipe thing don't actually connect. So whether that was a purpose or accident, I'm going to assume it's on accident or just carelessness. It misrepresents the data a little bit. Additionally, there is all kinds of other indentions here, little cracks, and yet many of these are not supposed to be letters, okay? Okay, let's look at the close-up of this little pipe thingy right here, okay? So I'm going to draw the shape here for you. So that's supposed to be the wall, which makes the w sound in Yahoo. It actually shows the other lines touching it in Galil's article, which is nice. Okay, let's talk about the little pipe thingy here. Okay, so the little pipe thingy here, which makes the sound w in Yahoo, obviously a very important letter. It actually shows the other lines touching it when we zoom in, but it's actually clear that there are all kinds of lines coming from this. I mean, you have one right. I'm just gonna highlight over it. We're gonna have one right here. We have one right here, of course. We have one right here. We have one right here. We have one right here. Then you have this, whatever this is right here. You've got some lines coming out up here. All kinds of lines, but somehow in his renditions of it, there's nothing connected to it. It's a little odd. The obvious question is, how do we know if these are letters or just cracks in the lead? If we look to the bottom of the tablet, what we'll see is almost a little piece broken off here, and he even draws it here. So when we look at the drawing, it's interesting because it's almost like we see cracks coming out of the drawing. And yes, the drawing, I mean, the cracks aren't exactly the same. You know, this one's a little bit thicker, but this one right here, this right here, definitely looks like cracks coming out of the missing lead, and it's very similar to the cracks up here, or here, or here, or here. So what are we supposed to make of that? It seems odd that, well, it doesn't seem odd because this is obviously, you know, a crack in the lead, but why is the bottom a crack but not the top? Vanderveen said he's confident in the inside because the outside. Let's compare the supposed letters really quick. Additionally, there appears to be another pit right here, okay? But at the same time, we have 1, 2, 3 pits, and then we look over here to the right, we have that pit right there assigned, that pit right there is assigned, and there's nothing here. So why is there 2 pits that look very close together, very look like the same thing, but for some reason, one pit isn't assigned a letter? What I would have liked to see in the article is an explanation for why there are inconsistencies in how the epigraphy is done. This could do a great job of answering potential objections, could explain things better. Maybe there's something missing that I or another epigrapher is doing wrong. Of course, the question is, if this isn't a letter, then what's to say that these are letters? If they have similarities in what looks to be cracks, then what's to say that these little pits right here are so special, but this one isn't? Let's next look at another of the supposed stick people. In Galil's interpretation of it, we have this little stick person right here. It's a very big one. Of course, it looks different than the one we already have. One's much bigger than the other. But when we look on the left side here, it doesn't look anything like the other stick person. I mean, there's nothing there. It looks like we have 4 pits, but one's missing apparently, or something must have happened odd there. Now this is supposed to be the same letter, but when we look at the other 2 and compare all 4, they don't look anything alike. The right of the tablet must have already had a bigger font library than I do. Lucky guy. Or girl. You know how girls like their fancy fonts. When we look at Galil's drawing, there's another pit in between the 2 stick people which stands out. So we have one pit right here, and there's supposedly a thing right there, and that's supposedly supposed to be in between this, and as you can already tell, it seems like something's off. Okay, so let's look at Galil's work, and then we'll try to find out and replicate it ourselves. So we have, all right, this little race-looking thingy, and it's got all this black stuff around it. It's supposed to be at negative 0.15, and it is an inverted race beneath the leg of hay in the upper register. Okay, so we're gonna go on little. We're gonna go up to the little GIF they gave us. We're gonna find negative 0.15. All right. Now, as you can tell, that doesn't look anything like what Galil said it was looked like. And of course, the reason is because it was put through an editor, okay? But that's not the full story, okay? It's normal to be put through an editor to, you know, try to make it stand out. The problem is, what Paborius does is he cites where he takes a screenshot of negative 0.15. It's a little different than the original. What are we supposed to do with that? He does some flipping. He gets to 0.25, and he's like, okay, that's a little bit closer, but you know, it's still very different. You know, obviously that right there and that right there are completely different pictures. What we have here is the right is the actual photo at 0.25, and on the left is edited. So what he did is he put it through his own little bit of editing to try to replicate what Galil did, and you'll notice that it's relatively close. One's much darker. Okay, he gives us how he did it there, and then what he does is he compares the he circles the similarities in the photo, which shows that he was looking at the right place on the slices on the GIF. We're at the right level, and the editing isn't perfect, but it's obviously, yep, this is the right slice. Okay, what's the problem with this? The problem is that it's on a different slice. So it appears that Galil must have forgot or messed up or did something wrong so that the it was labeled wrong. So that's really weird. Not a huge deal. People make mistakes. Of course, how this was got through peer review is a different question. But what here he compares it. All right, yep, I mean, look at that. Look at that. That's pretty close to what it is, okay? Okay, so this little pit here that's supposed to match this right here, it's not the same. All right, whatever. Not the same level, but it's not a big deal, okay? Problem. The problem is that this little stick man right here, as we mentioned before, it's supposed to be 1, 2, 3 big parts there. And the only thing around that is this one right here, this one right here, and this one right here. That's really awkward because this one right here at the top of the head is supposed to be this guy. So what he's done is, it appears that he has looked at it one time and realized, okay, so there's something under the legs. Okay, cool. I'll put a mark there. And then he apparently looked at it again later or something like that and realized, oh, shoot, okay, looks like this is connected to a person. Oh, great. All right, cool. That's really awkward. So which one is it? Okay, let's look at 4B and 10B in Table 8. So we have Table 8. Let's find it. We have 4B and 10B. All right. 4B and 10B. All right. So as you can tell, they're relatively similar. All right. So, it's supposed to be the same letter, so it makes sense. One has a bit of a same size as the top. When we look on the left side here at the actual artistry, it seems like this one is cut off. That's interesting. Why is the letter cut off? Hard to tell. And there are different levels, so 0.25, 0.35 shouldn't be a big deal, all right? Of course, they're not specific. Central fold area, and that's the right half, all right? The mistake we're about to mention is extremely frustrating because when we look at the article and look at the table, we see what looks like pictures of the tablet, and then the proposed drawing of the letter beside it. Some of them don't look anything like the drawing, like where's a good example? Like this right here, I have no idea what that's supposed to be. I have no idea how that's supposed to happen. But at the same time, some of them look better, okay? The problem is that there's no place in this paper which shows where the actual individual letters are on the tablet in relation to all the other letters. What right here is just individual letters picked out, individual parts of the tablet, picked out. It's hard to tell exactly where it is. There's no context. There's no real comparison of two things right beside each other. We don't really even know what it is. Okay, an obvious example we talked about before, the lines were touching, but you couldn't tell that in the other photo. All right, so look at 4B and 10B. They are very similar, but also very different. Okay, so as we have here, we have Poborius took out the Reish, what we were just looking at, 10B, out of the photo and just put it in his files here, all right? He went and found it. That's the unmodified version of it. he took Galil's version with the edits. He took his version. It's not going to be as focused because the GIF that was sent in is not high quality photos of it, but he used some editing and that looks pretty similar. All right, so we know where he's got it. You know where he got it from. All right, and then he showed how similar his writing, or then he showed how similar his edits were, so that basically to make sure that we got the right place. Okay, that can't just be a coincidence where he got that picture from. Okay, then what he does is he takes the photo and he puts it next to where his edits are, just to prove that's where he got it. All right, yep, definitely looks like the same thing. And you'll notice that you can tell that that's cut off. Oh, looks like we're already seeing something interesting. So that's cut off here, but it looks like it's cut off there. It looks like it's missing something in the photo. So why would that have happened? All right. So let's look at 4B as we were looking at before. Very similar. And what he notes is that 8B and 4B are actually the same spot, just different slices, which in turn overlaps with 3-2B in the negative 0.85 slice. Now, Galil's sketch of 8-4B is localized in blue, the one for 8-10B in red, and the one in 3-2B is in green. So what we have here is literally 3 letters right on top of each other. And of course, so what he's found is 3 letters right on top of each other. And of course, the most obvious issue of all of this is that of these 3 letters, they all are in parts of different words. That's ridiculous. That just doesn't happen in writing. Okay, and this is his picture of the little stick person. I find it really interesting that he has some writings here. I don't see, I mean, you can barely see something, but I mean, that might be, I mean, you can barely see something. That might be pushing it a little bit. Of course, this is at the negative 0.85, which is way different level than the other ones. So what Poborius did was he went and documented every single letter that he could find. And we're going to talk about one more, which is really fascinating, okay? And so, yeah, as he says here, 8-4B, 4B and 10B are in the exact same spot. Then you have 8-11B, that's where Galil says it's supposed to be, but it's actually on this crosshair thing right here. Of course, you have the ones that don't actually stick together. Okay, so this is Poborius finding all 3 letters, and what does Galil's drawings look like? Oh, well, it looks like they're completely separate. That's really odd, okay? Yep, we've seen that. That seems familiar. And of course, we've seen that. But they're completely separate, and as he notes, completely different levels. Poborius points out they obviously did not use a grid system to make sure they knew the position of each feature under examination. The letter schematic looks like it was just eyeballed with little care to accuracy. So a grid system would look something like this. So they would put lines down here, all the way across, all the way to the end, and then you do a cross, and then you would sign the letters B, and then 2, 3, 4. So it would be like, okay, say that's F. So it'd be F2. That'd be like F. So like F2 is right here, F3 is right here, F4 is right here. This one right here, say that's like, you know, D3. Well, if D3 is in a separate box, then we're good. But if D3 is in the same box as another one, well, then there must be something off. But apparently they didn't do this. He also says, I have to question the methodology. The 2 slices here are separated by a total of 1.2 millimeters. Okay, that's a long ways. We have negative 0.85 and 0.35. So You add that up, that's 1.2. The 0.35 millimeter slice is much closer to the surface with surface features visible, okay? So this image that best matches the Hay interpretation is buried under 1.2 millimeter of lead. So another interesting tidbit is that when we look right here, that right there looks similar to what we have our options are. It looks similar. Okay. The problem is finding out which one it is, okay? So that right there is very similar to maybe that one, or okay, maybe that one. But when we look at the actual photo, and there's, as we noted before, there's certainly something to the left, or, the left arm of this stick figure here. But what's also to the left here is this foot looking thing. So that looks like that's 8-7B. But when we compare that with, so that's certainly, so we have, you got something like this. So we got something like this. All right, and so that's the stick person, and then to the left of that we have, okay, that's the little foot thingy, and then of course we already talked about this is actually another letter on top of there, supposedly. And so we got this foot, okay, so that makes sense. There's a little footlet thingy to the left of it, but when we look at the actual artwork of it, well, that's interesting because the only thing to the left of this is this diamond looking thing. There's nothing else there. But that doesn't look like a diamond thing at all, actually. So that's really, really odd. This thingy right there is supposed to be that right there. So this foot thingy is supposed to be that diamond looking thing. Now how that happened, I have no idea. Okay, let's move out to right here of the drawing. So we have the left of the drawing here. And what we have here is, okay, so it looks like, Galil's done a little bit better job of labeling here. So he's got this on the left register. He has this to the left of the inverted race 3. So this is 3. And so this right here is supposedly to the left of this, okay? So let's look at the drawing. So look to the drawing. All right. So this is this right here. We got this right here. We're looking for a diamond thing. So the diamond thing is to the left of the arrow looking thing. I guess that's the arrow thing. But there's no diamond looking thing over there. That's really odd. Okay. So let's try and find this arrow thing. Probrius looks at it. All right, so he's found the error thing. It's in 0.15. It's not in 0.35 as claimed right here, but that is what it is. Okay, that's odd. All right, and then he then matched 89B. It is the 0.35 M slice, but the contrast has been slightly boosted in the edited one so that we can see it. Okay. Not a terrible thing. Oh, but wait. Looks like that is actual right on top of the overlapping letters. So the fun thing about all of this is that 89B does not appear in the position in the schematic drawing, okay? So it's supposed to be out here, but it's actually not in this drawing at all. So it appears that Galil forgot to draw it. He ends with saying, "This paper has no business being published and should be retracted." Boreas sums up here last concluding thoughts on the article. He says, "Many of the images of letters are selectively processed and decontextualized. The images are often misassigned to tomographic slices. The same features in the artograph are often assigned to multiple letters at different tomographic levels. And the letters themselves imaginatively misconstrue pits, striations, and cracks and other non-informational features of the artifact, sometimes at levels below the surface under other letters." He says, "I will leave this to the professional epigraphers, Galileo's peers, to determine if there are any letters on the artifact, but a cursory examination of the published images makes clear that the semantic drawing and the supposed Hebrew text is full of nonsense." Those are some pretty damning words. Okay, so a good article, what it'll do is it will anticipate the objections and it'll answer them so they can give the best article. Let's look in the article to see if they have a way of solving all these kinds of dilemmas. Just kidding. They don't mention any of it. See, a good article will be honest and put forward its shortcomings. A good article will at least attempt to rebut potential challenges. See, every argument sounds great until you hear the rebuttals. We've all been shown arguments that sound great at first, but then we realize they are actually quite terrible once we hear challenges to it. A good article attempts to take the challenges head on and will be honest about the negatives or defeat them. On the other hand, a bad article will not mention any shortcomings or mention only the very obvious issues. This is frustrating to much of scholarship because the people that submitted this paper knew there would be thousands of lay people reading it with absolutely zero training in epigraphy. People that really, really, really want the Bible to be true. People that aren't willing to go out and look at the negative reviews of the paper. See, this is careless scholarship at best and immoral at worst. On that same note, I wanted to remind everyone what the original supposed proto-alphabetic script was supposed to look like as posted when the news of the tablet started circulating. The original is on the right side. Notice how nice and neat the drawing is. Note how this picture also didn't show the stick person and the pipe letter touching as we showed earlier. If the letters were shown touching at the beginning of all the Mount Ebal tablet bonanza, anyone in their right mind would instantly be skeptical because we realize that people typically don't draw touching letters. Drawing touching letters makes it hard to read, so people from the earliest of times have usually not connected letters when writing. In addition, imagine if Galileo and the crew originally made the photo on the left the one they popularized a year ago. See, while it's certainly possible that humans write letters so that they touch, we don't have a single ancient text that writes sentences like the picture on the left. Even if all of the letters are actually letters, there's no legitimate reason why we should ever read the letters from right to left or up to down or in a circle or whatever. The letters look like the writer was just drawing letters at random with no real direction. The thing that frustrates so many about this is that Scott Stripling, Dr. Vanderveen, and Gershon Galil knew that they would be getting all kinds of publicity, money, and fame if they made the drawing on the right public, but conveniently didn't find it worthwhile to include the rest of what they thought were letters. If they posted the photo on the left first, we might not even be talking about this today. Also remember that they didn't even share a shred of evidence of what the tablet actually looked like for almost an entire year until it was published. Okay, bonus time. The ABR team has done all kinds of interviews out there, and in these interviews, they've said some really odd things. Some things even look really, really sketchy. Illegal sketchy.
So Stripling had the idea to do a wet sift through Zertal's debris piles. The problem is that Mount Ebal is located in the West Bank and outside of the jurisdiction of the Israel Antiquities Authority, or the IAA. This is a highly politically sensitive situation. The Israeli Defense Force Civil Administration oversees all archaeological activity in what is called Zone C of the occupied West Bank. But the site is located in Zone B, which is under the authority of the Palestinian administration. These regulations have been in place since the Oslo Accords in 1993. The Palestinian administration has condemned Stripling's Mount-a-Ball dump salvage, and the civil administration classified the project as a private activity. Stripling and his team worked closely with the nearby illegal Zionist settlement, Shavei Shomron, which is in Zone C. This is where they transported soil and material from Zertal's debris piles to the dry and wet sifting operation, and I suspect that this is what the civil administration classified as private activity. Moreover, in an interview about Stripling's find from April 2022, our friend Jeremiah J. Johnston,
whom you may remember from our most recent collaboration, our response to Jeremiah's 7 best reasons for the resurrection,
claimed that Stripling was operating under Zertal's license, which was pre-Oslo Accord.
Did he even have the right license? Well, yeah, he was there on Zertal's license. He can show you the license, and that was pre-Oslo Accord.
Johnston claims to be a good friend of Stripling, but this is utter nonsense. Excavation permits are not transferable, and they are good for only 1 season. There is some debate about this, but many would consider Stripling's Mount-a-Ball dump salvage project to be a flagrant breach of international law. I think it is alarming that in this very interview, Stripling actually says of their operation.
Well, nobody knew we were doing it, for one thing. It was sort of covert because it's in a very sensitive area.
So even before getting into the artifact itself, the whole situation behind its discovery is a huge, sketchy mess.
Did they do something illegal? I certainly cannot answer that question. But if it's true, that's not looking very good. Now, I know a question you might be asking is, why have you not interviewed a scholar to talk about each little piece of epigraphy? Well, the problem is that nobody really wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to spend the time to go through the entire article and point out every single flaw in it, because almost all scholars think it's completely pointless. There's nothing on it at all. There's no reason to even start with, each individual point if it's all bad and all isn't there. There is no credible scholar out there that thinks this is a good article. Even scholars that actually did the article don't think this is a good article. And sadly, at this point, there's just way too many issues with the evidence we've been given so far to conclude that there's anything on this. I've heard some scholars say that there might be letters, but the question, of course, is which ones are those? Well, that'll take a lot more study, and maybe we'll see that in the future. But until then, at the very least, we should be extremely skeptical. I'm excited to see the outside tablet, but we'll see, and I'm not going to get my hopes up. If you think this article is better than I'm portraying it, tell me what's wrong. Tell me what issue I have, and I'd love to correct myself. Anyways, check out the first video if you haven't seen it already. Like and subscribe. If you enjoyed this, make sure to follow along and check out the other videos. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.